A TV presenter is detained and arrested live during the program. Everyone is in shock. She is stunned to learn the reason for the arrest, but no one imagined that. The studio was buzzing with the usual pre-show hustle. Emma Scott, the beloved host of Morning Matters, was going over her notes for the day's segment. The audience filled the seats, eagerly anticipating the live broadcast. Emma, a seasoned presenter, had a warm smile and an air of confidence that made viewers feel at home. She had been hosting the show for over a decade, and her professionalism and charm had won her a loyal following. As the cameras rolled and the lights brightened, Emma welcomed her audience with her signature charm. "Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of Morning Matters. Today, we have some incredible guests and stories that will inspire and enlighten you." The crew moved efficiently, adjusting cameras and checking sound levels. Emma felt a familiar thrill as the show started. Little did she know, this day would be unlike any other. Halfway through the show, just as she was about to introduce the next guest, a group of police officers entered the studio. The room fell silent, and the audience's excitement turned to confusion. "Emma Scott, you are under arrest," announced the lead officer, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. The cameras, still rolling, captured every moment of the unfolding drama. Emma's eyes widened in shock. "What? There must be some mistake," she stammered, her mind racing. She looked around, seeing the bewilderment mirrored on the faces of her crew and the audience. Her co-host, Daniel, froze, his mouth open in disbelief. The officers approached her, their expressions stern. "We have a warrant for your arrest," the lead officer said, showing her the document. Emma's hands trembled as she took the paper, her vision blurring with tears. The cameras captured every moment, broadcasting the surreal scene to viewers at home. Emma's heart pounded as she tried to process what was happening. She had always been on the right side of the law, dedicated to her work and her family. Her mind raced with questions. Who could have done this? What had she done wrong? What's the charge? Emma managed to ask, her voice trembling. The officer's gaze softened slightly. "Fraud and embezzlement," he replied. "You're accused of siphoning funds from the charity you promote." Emma felt like the ground had been pulled from under her feet. The charity in question, Hope for All, was a cause close to her heart. She had poured her soul into it, raising funds to support underprivileged children. The accusation felt like a dagger to her heart. As the officers led her away, the studio erupted in chaos. Her co-host, Daniel, quickly cut to a commercial break, but the damage was done. The audience was in shock, and social media exploded with reactions. Emma's phone buzzed incessantly in her pocket, but she couldn't bear to look at the messages. She could only imagine the hurt and confusion her family must be feeling. Backstage, her producer, Lisa, was frantically making calls, trying to understand the situation. "This can't be true," she muttered, her hands shaking. Emma had always been honest and hardworking. Lisa knew there had to be some mistake. Lisa's assistant, Kevin, was equally stunned. "Should we get a statement from Emma's family?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Yes, but be sensitive. This is a nightmare for them," Lisa replied, trying to keep her composure. She knew that this scandal would be all over the news by now, and the pressure was mounting. Meanwhile, Emma's thoughts were a whirlwind. Who could have done this to her? And why? She thought of her husband, Mark, and their 2 children, Jake and Emily. How would they handle the news? Her thoughts were interrupted as they arrived at the station. The officers escorted her inside, where a crowd of reporters had already gathered. "Emma, do you have anything to say? Is it true you stole from the charity? How do you plead?" The questions bombarded her from all sides, but Emma kept her head down, tears streaming down her face. She felt humiliated and helpless. Inside the station, the officers booked her, taking her fingerprints and mugshot. Emma couldn't believe this was happening. It felt like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. She sat in a holding cell, her mind racing. How could she prove her innocence? Who would believe her? As the hours dragged on, Emma's thoughts turned to her family. Mark must be frantic, trying to explain to Jake and Emily what had happened. She knew her children would be scared and confused. Emma felt a surge of determination. She had to fight this. For her family, for herself, and for the charity she loved so dearly. Hours later, Emma sat in an interrogation room, her hands cuffed. She felt a surge of determination. She was innocent, and she would prove it. As she awaited her lawyer, she began to piece together the puzzle. Someone had framed her, and she wouldn't rest until she found out who. Her lawyer, David, finally arrived. "Emma, I believe you," he said firmly. "We'll get through this." Emma nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope. "David, someone has set me up. We need to find out who and why." David looked thoughtful. "Let's start by examining the charity's records and see if we can find any discrepancies." Emma felt a sense of resolve. She knew this wouldn't be easy, but she was ready to fight for her innocence. She thought of her family and her supporters, and she knew she couldn't let them down. Backstage, the atmosphere was tense and chaotic. Lisa, Emma's producer, was trying to maintain order while dealing with a barrage of phone calls from the media, concerned viewers, and network executives. "We need to issue a statement," she said, her voice shaky but determined. "We need to control the narrative before it spirals out of control." Kevin, Lisa's assistant, was pale and visibly shaken. "What should we say?" he asked, struggling to keep his voice steady. "How do we explain this?" Lisa took a deep breath, trying to gather her thoughts. "We need to express our shock and concern, and emphasize that we're looking into the matter. We stand by Emma until we have more information." She started drafting a statement, choosing her words carefully. Meanwhile, in the station, Emma was being questioned by the police. The interrogation room was cold and sterile, a stark contrast to the vibrant and warm studio she was accustomed to. The lead investigator, Detective Harper, sat across from her, a stern look on his face. "Emma, we need to go through the details of the charity's finances," Harper said, sliding a stack of documents across the table. "There are significant amounts unaccounted for." Emma scanned the documents, her mind racing. "I swear, I've never seen these transactions before. I would never steal from the charity. It's my life's work." Harper studied her face, looking for any sign of deceit. "Can you think of anyone who might have had access to these accounts? Anyone who might want to frame you?" Emma's thoughts turned to Rebecca, a former employee who had been fired for misconduct a few months earlier. There was an employee, Rebecca. She was let go for mishandling funds. She had access to the accounts. Harper made a note of the name. "We'll look into it. In the meantime, you'll need to stay in custody until we can clear this up." Emma's heart sank. The thought of spending another night away from her family was unbearable. "Please, I need to talk to my husband. My children must be so worried." Harper nodded, signaling to an officer to allow Emma a phone call. As she dialed Mark's number, her hands trembled. "Mark, it's me. I'm so sorry. I didn't do this. You have to believe me." Mark's voice was steady but filled with concern. "I believe you, Emma. We'll get through this together. The kids are scared, but I'm doing my best to explain things to them. We love you." Emma felt a surge of gratitude. "I love you too. Tell them I'll be home soon. I promise." Back at the studio, the chaos continued. Daniel, Emma's co-host, was trying to keep the show running smoothly, but it was clear that everyone was distracted. During the next commercial break, he approached Lisa. "How are we going to handle tomorrow's show? We can't just pretend this didn't happen." Lisa sighed, rubbing her temples. "We need to address it head-on. The viewers deserve to know what's going on. We'll update them as much as we can without compromising the investigation." As the night wore on, Lisa and Kevin worked tirelessly to manage the fallout. They prepared a special segment for the next day's show, explaining the situation to the viewers and reiterating their support for Emma. They also reached out to legal experts and crisis management professionals for advice on how to navigate the scandal. Meanwhile, Emma's lawyer, David, was working around the clock to gather evidence of her innocence. He contacted forensic accountants to audit the charity's finances and trace the suspicious transactions. He also reached out to former colleagues and employees who could vouch for Emma's character and integrity. The next morning, Emma woke up in her cell, exhausted but determined. She knew she had to stay strong for her family and for herself. As she was escorted to the courtroom for her arraignment, she tried to block out the flash of cameras and the shouts of reporters. In the courtroom, Emma pleaded not guilty to the charges. David presented the preliminary findings from their investigation, suggesting that the funds had been diverted by someone else. The judge agreed to release Emma on bail, pending further investigation. Emma felt a wave of relief as she was finally allowed to go home. As she stepped out of the courthouse, she was met by a swarm of reporters. "Emma, do you have any comment on the charges? Are you guilty? What's your next move?" Emma took a deep breath and faced the cameras. "I am innocent, and I will prove it. I have dedicated my life to helping others, and I would never betray that trust. I ask for your patience and understanding as we work to uncover the truth." At home, Emma was greeted with hugs and tears from Mark, Jake, and Emily. "Mommy, we missed you," Emily said, clinging to her leg. "I missed you too, sweetheart," Emma replied, fighting back tears. "But I'm home now, and we're going to get through this together." As Emma settled back into her routine, she remained focused on clearing her name. She knew it would be a long and difficult journey, but she was determined to see it through. With the support of her family, friends, and colleagues, she felt stronger and more resolute than ever. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Emma and David worked tirelessly to gather evidence and build a case. They pored over financial records, interviewed former employees, and followed every lead they could find. Emma's mind was constantly racing. She thought about Rebecca, wondering how someone she had trusted could betray her so deeply. She thought about the charity and the children it supported, knowing that every day spent fighting these charges was a day taken away from her true mission. David was a constant source of support and encouragement. "We're making progress, Emma. The evidence is starting to come together. We just need to stay focused and keep pushing forward." Emma nodded, feeling a sense of resolve. "I won't stop until my name is cleared. I owe it to the charity, to my family, and to myself." Meanwhile, the media continued to speculate and sensationalize the story. Emma found herself at the center of a media storm, with every aspect of her life scrutinized and dissected. It was exhausting and demoralizing, but she refused to let it break her spirit. One evening, as Emma was going through more documents, she came across an email exchange between Rebecca and a third party. The language was cryptic, but it suggested that Rebecca had been planning something for months. Emma's heart raced as she forwarded the emails to David. "This could be it," she said, her voice trembling with excitement. "This could be the proof we need." David reviewed the emails, his eyes narrowing in concentration. "This is definitely a lead. We need to find out who this third party is and what their connection to Rebecca might be." Emma felt a surge of determination. They were getting closer to the truth. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she was prepared to fight with everything she had. As the days passed, Emma's resolve only grew stronger. She spent every waking moment working on her case, determined to clear her name and restore her reputation. She leaned on her family for support, drawing strength from their unwavering belief in her innocence. Mark was a pillar of strength, always there to offer a reassuring word or a comforting hug. "We're going to get through this, Emma. I believe in you, and so do Jake and Emily. We're in this together." Emma smiled, feeling a sense of gratitude and love. "Thank you, Mark. I couldn't do this without you." One night, as Emma was preparing for bed, she received a call from David. "Emma, we've made a breakthrough. The third party mentioned in the emails is a known associate of Rebecca's. We have enough evidence to bring them in for questioning. Emma felt a rush of relief. This is it, David. This is our chance to prove my innocence. The next day, Emma and David met with Detective Harper to present their findings. Harper reviewed the evidence carefully, his expression thoughtful. This is compelling evidence, he said finally. We'll bring Rebecca and her associate in for questioning. Emma felt a surge of hope. They were finally making progress. As Harper and his team worked to bring in Rebecca and her associate, Emma continued to prepare for her trial. She knew that the fight wasn't over yet, but she felt a renewed sense of determination. The interrogation of Rebecca and her associate revealed a web of deceit and betrayal. Rebecca had indeed been siphoning funds from the charity and had framed Emma to cover her tracks. The associate had helped her launder the money, hoping to avoid detection. With this new evidence, David filed a motion to dismiss the charges against Emma. The judge reviewed the motion and agreed to a hearing. Emma felt a mixture of anxiety and hope as she prepared for her day in court. As the hearing approached, Emma's nerves were on edge. She knew that this was her chance to clear her name and prove her innocence. She spent hours rehearsing her testimony, going over every detail with David. On the day of the hearing, Emma walked into the courtroom with her head held high. She knew that the truth was on her side, and she was ready to fight for her freedom. The courtroom was packed with reporters, friends, and supporters, all eager to see the outcome of the case. David presented their evidence meticulously, laying out the details of Rebecca's scheme and the role of her associate. Emma watched as the judge listened intently, his expression serious. When it was Emma's turn to testify, she took a deep breath and stepped up to the witness stand. She spoke clearly and confidently, recounting the events and her unwavering commitment to the charity. She looked the judge in the eye, hoping that he could see the sincerity in her words. The cross-examination was tough, but Emma held her ground. She knew that her future depended on her ability to stay calm and composed. As the questioning continued, she felt a growing sense of confidence. She was telling the truth, and she believed that the truth would prevail. After what felt like an eternity, the judge finally called for a recess. Emma waited anxiously, her heart pounding. She knew that the decision would determine the course of her life. When the judge returned, his expression was unreadable. He looked around the courtroom before speaking. After reviewing the evidence and the testimony, I find that there is insufficient evidence to support the charges against Emma Scott. The charges are hereby dismissed. Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her. She was free. She turned to David, her eyes filled with gratitude. "We did it," she whispered. David smiled, his eyes shining with pride. "You did it, Emma. You proved your innocence." As Emma left the courthouse, she was greeted by a sea of reporters. She took a deep breath and faced the cameras. "I am grateful for the support of my family, friends, and legal team. I am innocent, and I am relieved that the truth has finally come to light. I will continue to fight for justice and integrity, and I will work to restore the good name of hope for all." At home, Emma was greeted with hugs and tears from Mark, Jake, and Emily. "Mommy, we missed you," Emily said, clinging to her leg. "I missed you too, sweetheart," Emma replied, fighting back tears. "But I'm home now, and we're going to get through this together." Emma knew that the journey was far from over, but she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was determined to rebuild her life and her reputation, and to continue her work with the charity. With the support of her family and friends, she knew she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The days following Emma's exoneration were a whirlwind of media appearances, interviews, and public statements. While she was relieved to have cleared her name, she knew that her reputation had been damaged and that rebuilding it would be a long and arduous process. Emma sat down with her PR team to strategize. "We need to focus on transparency and rebuilding trust," said Laura, the head of the PR firm. "We should arrange interviews where you can tell your side of the story and highlight your dedication to hope for all." Emma nodded. "I agree. It's important that people understand what really happened and that I'm committed to continuing my work with the charity. Laura suggested starting with a high-profile interview. Let's arrange an exclusive interview with a major news outlet. This will give you the platform to reach a wide audience and set the record straight. The interview was scheduled with one of the most respected journalists in the industry, Sarah Michaels. Emma felt a mix of nerves and determination as she prepared for the interview. She knew that this was her chance to reclaim her narrative. On the day of the interview, Emma arrived at the studio, feeling a sense of déjà vu. The last time she had been in a studio, her life had been turned upside down. But this time, she was in control. Sarah welcomed Emma warmly. "Thank you for joining us, Emma. I know this has been a difficult time for you." Emma nodded. "Thank you for having me, Sarah. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share my story." As the cameras rolled, Sarah began the interview with a straightforward question. "Emma, can you tell us what happened? How did you find yourself at the center of this scandal?" Emma took a deep breath. "It all started when I was accused of fraud and embezzlement involving the charity I've been dedicated to for years, Hope for All. It was a shock and a nightmare. But with the help of my amazing legal team and the support of my family, we uncovered evidence that proved my innocence. It turned out that a former employee, Rebecca, had been siphoning funds and framed me to cover her tracks." Sarah nodded, her expression sympathetic. "That must have been incredibly challenging. How did you cope with the stress and the public scrutiny?" Emma smiled faintly. "It was one of the hardest times of my life. But I had the unwavering support of my family, friends, and colleagues. They believed in me and stood by me every step of the way. I also drew strength from my commitment to the charity and the people it helps. I knew I had to fight for them as well." The interview continued, with Emma sharing her experiences and her plans for the future. She spoke about the lessons she had learned and her determination to use her platform to advocate for transparency and integrity in charitable work. The response to the interview was overwhelmingly positive. Viewers appreciated Emma's honesty and resilience. She received messages of support from people all over the country, many of whom shared their own stories of overcoming adversity. Emma's focus now was on restoring the reputation of Hope for All. She worked closely with the charity's board to implement new financial oversight measures and to ensure that the organization's mission continued unimpeded. She also launched a campaign to raise awareness about the importance of transparency and accountability in charitable organizations. As part of this campaign, Emma organized a series of fundraising events and public speaking engagements. She traveled across the country, sharing her story and advocating for stronger oversight and regulations in the charity sector. Her message resonated with many, and the campaign gained significant traction. During one of these events, Emma was approached by a woman named Linda. "Thank you for sharing your story, Emma," Linda said, tears in her eyes. "My family has benefited from Hope for All, and we've been following your journey closely. Your resilience has inspired us." Emma hugged Linda, feeling a deep sense of connection. "Thank you, Linda. Hearing stories like yours is what keeps me going. We're all in this together, and I'm committed to making sure that Hope for All continues to make a difference." The media frenzy gradually died down, but Emma remained vigilant. She knew that public trust could be fragile and that maintaining transparency was crucial. She continued to work tirelessly, not just for her own reputation, but for the integrity of the charity she loved. Back home, life slowly returned to normal. Mark, Jake, and Emily were her anchors, providing love and support through the ups and downs. "We're so proud of you, Mom," Jake said one evening as they sat down for dinner. "You didn't give up, and you showed everyone the truth." Emma smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "Thank you, Jake. I couldn't have done it without you all. You're my strength." As the weeks turned into months, Emma reflected on her journey. She had faced unimaginable adversity, but she had come out stronger. She had proven her innocence, restored her reputation, and strengthened the charity that meant so much to her. Emma knew that there would always be challenges ahead, but she felt ready to face them. She had learned the importance of resilience, determination, and the power of truth. And with her family by her side, she felt capable of taking on whatever the future held. The courtroom was packed with reporters, supporters, and curious onlookers. Emma took a deep breath as she entered, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. She was determined to clear her name and restore her reputation, but she knew that the road ahead would be tough. David, her lawyer, was confident. "We have a strong case, Emma. The evidence we've gathered is compelling. We just need to present it clearly and effectively." Emma nodded, trying to steady her nerves. "I trust you, David. Let's do this." The trial began with opening statements. The prosecution painted a picture of Emma as a trusted public figure who had betrayed that trust by embezzling funds from Hope for All. They presented a series of financial records that appeared to show suspicious transactions linked to Emma. David, however, was prepared. He began his defense by highlighting Emma's dedication to the charity and her spotless record. Emma Scott has dedicated her life to helping others. She has raised millions of dollars for Hope for All and has always acted with integrity and transparency. He then introduced the key piece of evidence they had uncovered, the email exchanges between Rebecca and her associate. These emails show that Rebecca, a former employee who was dismissed for misconduct, orchestrated this scheme to frame Emma. She had access to the accounts and used that access to divert funds and cover her tracks. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs as David presented the emails, along with forensic evidence linking Rebecca to the fraudulent transactions. The prosecution's case began to unravel as it became clear that Emma had been set up. Rebecca was called to the stand, and under cross-examination, she broke down. "Yes, I did it," she admitted, tears streaming down her face. "I was angry and jealous of Emma. I thought if I could ruin her, I'd feel better about myself. But I was wrong." Emma watched Rebecca's confession with a mixture of relief and sadness. She had always believed in giving people second chances, and seeing Rebecca's remorse was a powerful reminder of the complexity of human nature. The judge listened carefully to the testimony and reviewed the evidence. After a brief recess, he returned to deliver his verdict. "After considering the evidence and the testimony, I find that Emma Scott is not guilty of the charges against her. The evidence clearly shows that she was framed by Rebecca. The charges are hereby dismissed." A wave of relief washed over Emma as the courtroom erupted in applause. She hugged David, tears of joy streaming down her face. "We did it," she whispered. David smiled. "You did it, Emma. Your courage and determination made this possible." As Emma left the courthouse, she was greeted by a sea of reporters. She took a deep breath and faced the cameras. "I am grateful for the support of my family, friends, and legal team. I am innocent, and I am relieved that the truth has finally come to light. I will continue to fight for justice and integrity, and I will work to restore the good name of Hope for All." At home, Emma was greeted with hugs and tears from Mark, Jake, and Emily. "Mommy, we missed you," Emily said, clinging to her leg. "I missed you too, sweetheart," Emma replied, fighting back tears. "But I'm home now, and we're going to get through this together." The media frenzy gradually died down, but Emma remained vigilant. She knew that public trust could be fragile and that maintaining transparency was crucial. She continued to work tirelessly, not just for her own reputation, but for the integrity of the charity she loved. Back home, life slowly returned to normal. Mark, Jake, and Emily were her anchors, providing love and support through the ups and downs. "We're so proud of you, Mom," Jake said one evening as they sat down for dinner. "You didn't give up, and you showed everyone the truth." Emma smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "Thank you, Jake. I couldn't have done it without you all. You're my strength." As the weeks turned into months, Emma reflected on her journey. She had faced unimaginable adversity, but she had come out stronger. She had proven her innocence, restored her reputation, and strengthened the charity that meant so much to her. Emma knew that there would always be challenges ahead, but she felt ready to face them. She had learned the importance of resilience, determination, and the power of truth. And with her family by her side, she felt capable of taking on whatever the future held.